But this is a debate about an electorate, and there are a few electorates which are interesting. Wellington Central shaping up quite interesting at the moment, but the other one is Tamaki. And, of course, Tamaki used to be the electorate back in the day, for those who can remember, an electorate held by Rob Muldoon, the leader of the National Party. It is an affluent electorate, and one would say it is has been hitherto pretty well blue, pretty well a National Party stronghold. So some eyebrows were then raised when the Deputy Leader of the ACT Party, Brooke van Velden, decided she would have a tilt at the seat. And by all the polls and all the reports, it is a close-run thing with the incumbent National MP, Simon O'Connor. So I asked them both to come and debate and to pitch to the good voters of Tamaki here on the platform this morning. And I'm happy to say that both agreed to do so. So we are joined now by Brooke van Velden. Hello, Brooke. How are you?
I'm well, Sean. How are you?
Great, thank you. And Simon O'Connor. Simon, welcome to you.
Oh, it's great to be back on, Sean.
Yeah.
Here.
Look, I want to start by first saying I know you both, and strangely enough, in terms of policies, politics, view of the world, you're actually quite similar people. I don't imagine you're not chalk and cheese exactly. Brooke?
Oh, look, I think there are a few things that myself and my National Party colleagues can agree on, which is why we want to work really tightly as a two-party coalition in a government. But I'm standing in the seat of Tamaki because many people in the local community asked me to do it. And I said, look, we feel like we've kind of been taken for granted and we haven't had choice here for 63 years since Robert Muldoon won the seat. And all I'm offering this year is a bit of choice, a fresh new direction for Tamaki and a bit more magenta.
All right. Simon, would you agree that you do have some things in common? She's not exactly your polar opposite in terms of attitude and politics.
No, that's right. I mean, we're both on the right of politics. I'd be on the more moderate centre-right than some of the more fringy aspects of ACT. But there's a lot in similar, and you'll see that in the voting records in the parties. And as Brooke says, you know, if we have the privilege of winning government, you're going to see National and ACT work and cooperate together. But there were still points of difference. And those are very, very clear, I'd say, too, here on the ground when it actually comes to
Okay, what do you think are the fundamental points of difference between you and Brooke?
Oh, it's experience and being local. At the end of the day, this is my home. This is where I live with my family and kids, or stepchildren in my case. This has been my family home for years. So when I'm out and about, this is my community.
So the difference is your age and the fact that, and it's a very subtle way, Simon, of saying you're not a carpetbagger.
Oh, well, I don't use that.
No, I
language.
did. You might as well have used that term.
No, well, it has been local. I mean, the initial suggestions is people wanting change and choice. Well, they've had someone here all the time and enormously experienced. I bring an enormous amount of experience from the private to the public sector, the voluntary sector, and that's what I bring every day to this wonderful electorate.
Okay, what about policy? You talked about voting record earlier.
Yeah, well, it depends on what areas you want to talk
Well, what
on.
do you think, you raised it, where do you think the major differences are? Give us some examples.
One would be around, say, elements of law and order, certainly two of how we treat our superannuitants. You mentioned
Okay, what elements of law and order?
Oh, well, you've got, was it ACT wanting to have targets for how many people in prison, which seems sort of an echo of Labor's targets to reduce the prison population, whereas in National, we go, hey, if you do the crime, you do the time. Yeah. We're not here to try and set targets for how many people need to be in prison.
Okay. Anything else on law and order?
Oh, well, we had a debate the other night coming to the area of how we treat young juvenile offenders. We are very clear there needs to be consequences on them. Use the likes of boot camps. Again, ACT would have a slightly harder approach to that. That's not where we sit. Probably the word you'll keep hearing me coming back to is much more moderate. National sits on the centre right.
Okay. Brooke, I'm going to give you a chance to respond to that. First, the age thing. Is your youth a disadvantage?
Absolutely not. You know, I may be turning 31 the day after the election, but I've been in Parliament now for 3 years as the Deputy Leader of the party. and I'm also potentially likely to sit in cabinet post-election, all things going well with a change of government. But I've also spent 3 years helping to write the End of Life Choice Act and pass it through the parliamentary process. So I've got heaps of experience there. But in my youth, I did work in a factory on a factory floor, making light fittings. So, I've seen a whole range of different parts of the experience.
All right. Are you a carpetbagger, Brooke? Where are you from? How long have you lived in Tamaki? Do you actually live in Tamaki?
I don't live in Tamaki. I live 1 block from the border. But I'll give you this, Sean. I bought my first home when I was 28 with no help from my parents or the government. And I'm really proud of that. It's a little 1-bedroom in Green Lane. Sure, it might be 1 block from the border, but it's more important where I am during the day than when I sleep at night. And what I've been hearing from people is that they want someone who's visible in the electorate. And I've been more visible in the past few months than people have said Simon's been for 12 years. And I'd love to continue doing that as the local MP. I've been to many, many shops around the electorate, and they've said, thank you for coming in. It's really good to see a hard-working MP who would love to be local, and that's what I'd love to do for the people of Tamaki.
All right. Would you move a block if you could, if you were to win the seat?
Oh, absolutely. But I'll give you another thought there. I don't think I would have been able to afford something within Tamaki when I was 28, so I'm actually really proud of how close I managed to get.
Yeah, I mean, both of you will admit this is one of the snootiest electorates around, isn't it?
Well, I think that's sort of, I mean, at the end of the day, you've got some of the wealthiest. I've often talked about the scandal of Tamaki, actually, insofar as you've got some of the wealthiest and wonderful suburbs, and then you have some of the poorest suburbs. So I've been in Glenninnis all over the weekend, and you've got a lot of people down there. Again, a wonderful community, Sean, but they're really struggling. So it's quite a divide here at times. I think that's really important to stress.